Yerp, welcome to the podcast. Another episode of the Hard Never Dies podcast. This is episode 4. Sorry for the delay, but we in here. I got my boy Rashad in here as well. So Rashad.
Yo, what's good?
All right, so yeah, it's been going kind of smoothly so far with 3 episodes and well now 4. Like I said, we're going to be talking about the disrespect for the horror genre. And there's
Mm.
quite a few, but before we get into that, just kind of want to just talk about some other things real quick. Um, you've been watching anything horror related?
Uh,
Anything new or old?
yeah. Well, I watched two this week. So I watched the Infinity Pool a couple of days ago for the first time, and that was very different.
Oh yeah. That's definitely a trip. That's a wild movie, but it's all worth seeing. Mia
Yeah,
Goth.
I can't. Yeah, I can't even classify it really as horror because it wasn't scary, so to say, or I won't even think of it as horror. But it was trippy as shit. It was very trippy. But I think something's wrong with me, Perp, because I'm starting to get like a fetish almost for Mia Goth. Like almost in a trashy way, because dude, like something about her is disturbing and trashy, but I can't like something about it just like it just does it for me. I don't know what the hell.
Salute Jason Entertainment. Welcome.
Hey, what's
But
good?
yeah. Like she just has this way of capturing herself on camera. Like she's very captivating, I should say. And speaking of which, it's officially been a year since Pearl came out, so
Oh
it's crazy
wow.
how fast a year kind of goes by. And Mia Goth is definitely going to be popping back up for Maxine. I'm weird. I want to see what they're going to do with her character, with her playing. Like, how is Maxine going to differ from Pearl this time around?
Hmm.
Where we just kind of got a glimpse of Maxine, but we know exactly how Pearl's story began and how it ended. So that stuff is going to be interesting to me, and for it to be a year old and it to come out
Wow.
and that also kind of is my segue into this episode being the disrespect for horror because like last year a lot of people think that she should have been nominated for something and
Hmm.
I know most people in the horror genre don't care about these big awards and stuff like that. I don't really care, but I just think there's something there just for acknowledgement, I guess. Even though you'll have these big horror award shows, but I don't feel like a lot of people know about those or watch those unless if they really know something about it. It's not really like heavily marketed. So having
Right.
like a horror movie or somebody within horror being nominated on a big stage, whether it be like an Emmy, Oscar, whatever, I think kind of helps. But at the same time, understand that some people don't want to like they don't really care for an award from the Oscars, whatever. But like it just definitely shows that they don't treat horror as a whole as the same as any other genre. You know, what I'm saying even though you got great performances and stuff like that, and better than most movies that make Best Picture or etc. So it's interesting to me.
Yeah, like come to think about it, I think there's only been like maybe a handful of actors that won an Oscar for horror. Like off the top of my head, only ones I could think of is Kathy Bates for Misery, and I'm
The
not sure.
Exorcist won an Academy Award for something.
I mean, as far as like actress or actress,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, Kathy Bates. I don't know if Jack Nicholson was nominated, but I know he didn't win for The Shining, but I don't know if he was nominated either. Damn, there's not many actors that I could think of that won for performance in a horror movie, unless you know of any.
Now, just like I know the Exorcist won something. I want to double check that if they won exactly what. they got an award for. But
Mm-hmm.
ever since then, it just doesn't seem like the Academy, and just even outside of that, it's just horror isn't well respected, even
Right.
though it's been around the longest. It's been around for over 100 years now. It's just
Yeah.
like it has such a rich history. And say what you want to say about certain films, some people will say, "Oh, horror is kind of falling off," which is couldn't be further from like far away from the truth. Like if that's not, that's like when you just look at the scope of things now compared to how they were like X amount of years ago. It's just horror is in a great place right now. So I don't understand how somebody could
Facts.
say that it's fallen off. It's only
I
getting
think
better.
I'm about to say
Yeah,
I think it's better. It's bigger than ever. You know what I'm saying? Like I was saying last week. Back in the day, it was kind of a cult thing. So like you just had a small group that really appreciated those films, but now it's more mainstream. It's more it's more out there. So yeah, I think it's bigger than ever. Yo, Tony, what's up, fam? I just see you said Rashad, what's up? Um,
yeah. It's interesting though, to me. It's just you know, because like last week I kind of teased what I wanted episode 7 to be, or it's going to be, is like what's going to be the first $1 billion horror movie, or going to get that close, or what's going to be that one movie that's going to be like such a dope horror movie that it's just going to be recognized from everybody. Like, okay, this is the movie that makes me kind of understand this genre, and I feel like that's a lot like for a lot of people, but
mhm.
some people it's just they don't have that appreciation for like the creativity that goes behind a lot of these horror
Right.
movies, even like the practical effects they bring to a lot of these horror movies over the years, especially like 80s and 90s. Like I
Hmm.
think it's kind of overshadowed just for the
Right.
just for certain things outside of people behind the camera, or even on camera, the inner workings and stuff. Even like people that do sound design for some horror movies, or what I'm saying, like something,
Right.
and I always wondered like why wouldn't the Oscars, since they're changing up so much, they should just make horror its own category if you don't want to lump it up with like other movies for Best Picture and whatnot. But
Hmm.
that's just me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's definitely no respect on their name, and I think that's because I guess horror is considered like trashy. It's just cheap. You know what I'm saying? Cheap, scary. I mean, cheap, gory stuff for young people that's not really respected as cinema. Kind of like how Scorsese says superhero films aren't cinema. I think
Mm,
like the Academy people, because think about it, bro. Most of the Academy members are like old heads. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Old heads that can, barely keep their head up. You know what I mean? So of course they're gonna look at horror like, oh, that's not considered cinema. Like, we don't. They're too sophisticated. Horror is like beneath them. You know what I'm saying? I guess that's the best way to put it. Like a lot of people in the industry feel like horror is like beneath them. It's right above porn. Okay, porn is the bottom of the barrel, and horror is right above there.
and it's interesting that you mentioned those two things, and that's all like X was kind of about. When
Hmm.
you look at X and Pearl, just how sex and violence were kind of like very much the main focus for both films, but different time periods. So, and maybe like it, and you also make a good point that it's a lot of old heads that are in control of what to say. That like a lot of old gatekeepers, and maybe once they kind of be replaced with some younger people and stuff like that over time,
Right.
you'll start to see certain things change. Because I definitely think that like horror can't go another 100 years without at least like getting acknowledged more by the Academy and other award shows. I just don't.
And also too, if you think about it,
Yeah,
also horror, like if you do the budget to gross ratio, horror movies are very profitable, because like I said, they're
like,
dirt cheap to make. So you can take a horror film that costs about $2 million and it makes about 60 million. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's a
They always turn a profit.
yeah,
Um,
that's and everybody kind of seems to overlook that. Even regardless of if the movie's good, it's still going to make a lot more money
Mm-hmm.
than a current. Look at something like Blue Beetle or something like that. A lot of
Right.
comic book movies, they put like $200 million in it, and it don't even reach that. But if you put something like you said, like 5, 10, 15, you could definitely make your money back within a weekend or two. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? And you know, it's just really interesting. And to see and to see how like it kind of breaks through to new people and how they view it now. It's interesting. I just find I find it that like a lot more people are starting to get more into the genre. Maybe that has something to do with the internet. You know what I'm saying too? That kind of helps horror just kind of elevate a little bit more, even though the internet could just be also a downfall of a certain genre or anything that we like because it tends to get overhyped or um,
Mm-hmm.
even something like Talk to Me that came out this year. Some people were mixed. You know what I'm saying? Some people thought it was like overhyped or wasn't as scary. I guess because they always fall for the tagline, like, "Oh, it's the scariest thing since sliced." But they always say
Right.
that about every single, like, just to hype up any movie. Like, this is the first, this is number one movie, blah blah blah. It all comes down to like, what's your
Right.
preferences? I think a lot of people should keep that in mind as well. Watching
And
different
bro,
types of good.
what's the main movie they always compare it to? Like 9 times out of 10, when they market a new horror movie, they say the scariest movie since The
The
Exorcist.
Exorcist, yeah, and that's like, and that's the kind of the bar that they kind of set.
Right.
But at the same time, um, it's kind of wild where that's the bar. But I feel like there's been better movies
Yeah.
than The Exorcist. Not saying The Exorcist is like a bad movie, but like I feel like there has been, even Get Out should have got somewhere, even though that kind of started to kind of get more attention or get more people's eyes on a horror movie or something like that. But
Right.
there's people that will blatantly just be disrespectful to it. Just like you said, they don't acknowledge it. They don't look at it as art. They don't look at it as like. And you made that comparison. I always like the comparison that like when it comes to film genres, horror is kind of like just hip hop, where nobody really looks at it like looks at hip hop as real music, or
Mm-hmm.
looks at horror as a real genre
Right.
because they feel
They
like that's
consider it
all it
film.
is about. Because that's all they think it is about violence, and not all the time. It's not about that. Sometimes there's a message behind that violence, or sometimes it doesn't even need violence to just tell your story, tell its story, get its point across, stuff like that.
Right.
But
Right. And I think, and probably, do you think also maybe the slasher film kind of fucked that up? Because prior to, I think what the first slasher film was like, well, first, like, modern slasher film was what, Black Christmas or something like that.
yeah,
But prior to that, horror was more, I don't want to say sophisticated, but I'll put it this way: the studios had more faith in the horror genre. But then, when the slasher film emerged, when it started becoming about the body count and the blood and the
uh-huh.
guts, that's kind of, I think, when it stopped being taken seriously. Because you watch The Exorcist, there's no bodies, there's no bloodshed. Really, it's just about this girl possessed by a demon. You
Yeah,
know, and then you have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which also was that there wasn't no blood in that movie really. What I'm saying, it
mhm.
was more of what you didn't see, but I think that was the beginning of, okay, this is what it's all about, just the blood, the guts, and the bodies. And I guess after that, that's when they started considering it filth instead of cinema.
Yeah, and you even got like films like The Thing, which have some of the most incredible practical effects that you'll ever see
Hmm.
in a movie, but it's like acknowledged with horror fans, except like not really people outside of it for the most part.
Yeah, and the
Um,
thing did the thing actually like flop really bad, but then again, I think because it went against ET. and that was probably the worst thing John Carpenter could have did, or the studio could have did,
Yeah.
was put The Thing out like around the same time as ET, because you're not going to win that battle. So yeah, I think The Thing flopped very badly at the box office.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's still resonated with people. It became a classic over time. So
right.
So like yeah, it definitely, not saying that the genre shouldn't be criticized. It's not perfect, because just like any other genre, there always going to be a large flood of just bad content that comes out of it. And some people actually like that bad content, or they don't really see it as that, or it's just that's the type of entertainment they want. And that brings it back to like the slashers. And yeah, you could definitely say that things got watered down after the slashers came out, and that's why they needed to come out with something like Scream to kind of reinvent that subgenre. But yeah, but I think that just, you could look at that as a bad thing, but also a good thing, because after Scream, it inspires other people to kind of be like, all right, we want to do something completely different. Maybe come back to the creatures. We get Jeepers Creepers, or we'll get or now we're in this age of just revisiting a lot of these legacy franchises, whether it be Scream and Halloween. The list goes on. So there's always going to be something new and fresh, and that sometimes you might not like this subgenre of horror, but it's able to kind of, like I said, tap into a new audience, or get some people into the genre that wouldn't normally get into it. And I think just slashers are just very easy for casual mainstream audiences to just get behind. It's a very simple premise. Like, usually got like a handful of characters that personalities range from shit to just trash, and then you got that one final girl that somebody can relate to, or just root for. Very basic ball. You're just being chased by a person that uses normally one weapon of choice. Now, unless if you're Art, then you just got a whole bag full of just goodies waiting to just
Art the Clown Christmas special. So yeah, your boy T Virus Terrence here just he put me onto something here. I just looked it up right after he put it. I've never even heard of Peeping Tom, and I just looked it up. I see it's on Tubi, so I will be checking that out, bro. Because I thought Psycho was actually like the first slasher, but I had no idea about Peeping Tom.
Yeah, I know, I always knew about Peeping Tom. I was always kind of fuzzy on the release dates until, what was it, the 101 Scariest Shutter horror movie moments.
Okay.
Where they mentioned this, I was like, okay. And it looks really disturbing. I'm definitely gonna try to check that out, because I always like to get into like a little bit of horror, older horror and stuff like that. It's fascinating to kind of see that process, because it's another thing too. Back in the like 70s and 80s, like something like The Exorcist versus something like a slasher, the pacing is completely different. Where The Exorcist completely takes its time to tell its story. Some people might look at it as boring until we get to the last few, to the last act. But I think just the way that movie played out very much worked for the time, and a lot of studios and stuff like that wouldn't probably have the patience to craft a movie like that unless if they had enough time. And why you get such rushed horror movies, or some people just are tired of the Nun, certain tropey things, and that's why they kind of rely on that, because they're afraid to kind of get out of that box to do something different. Which, like I said, I think just based on how you saw horror play out last year, that should go to show you that it's okay to just do something risky or do something new, even if like it might not make you the most money. Over time, I think the fans or whatever, It may be, it might be a TV show or another horror movie, a new horror movie that um is able to, I guess, able to like accomplish what they're trying to accomplish, and even if it's poorly written or something like that, at least you gave it a try. Or if it doesn't resonate with everybody, at least you gave it a try, and maybe over time it will be something like The Thing that it will become like a cult classic. So
Yeah, and I think also too, bro. Like I think it's challenging. It's more challenging now than ever to scare people because oh, there's some huge misconception that Psycho is the first slasher. Psycho is just more iconic than Peeping Tom, and overall the better. Also, you're saying Psycho is the better film than Peeping Tom. I'm gonna check Peeping Tom out. I never even knew that movie existed. But
yeah,
but in the case of Psycho, now Psycho is a slasher film, but like a very intelligent slasher film because it's not like Norman Bates kills for no rhyme or reason. He just like you don't even know that Norman Bates is the killer. You know what I'm saying? Well,
yeah,
spoiler for anybody that's never seen Psycho. So I didn't watch that movie until I was a lot. No, I was probably about maybe 11 or 12 when I first saw Psycho, and even for a black and white movie at the time, I was sleeping on it. I'm like, black and white, yo, this shit ain't gonna scare me. And I swear to God, bro, when it was revealed that Norman was dressed up as his mom's, I got that feeling in the pit of my stomach. I was like, holy shit. You telling me this nigga was dressing like his mom's the whole time and talking to
yeah,
himself in his mom's voice? That fucked me up. And, so I think he caught like what 2 or 3 bodies in there, and they even flipped it to where the final who you thought was the final girl got killed off early on. So if you can do the slasher but make it, what I'm saying, unique and challenging to the audience instead of giving like you said the same old tropes over and over again, I think people will respect it more because right now it's almost like an assembly line of the same old thing, and I think that it just I don't know, it's hard to scare people now, bro, because there's so many horror movies. Like what can be done that hasn't been done already? Like
right,
how can you surprise people anymore without the cheap jump scare? Depending on the jump scare to scare somebody, how do you fuck with somebody's head like Psycho fucked with my head back when I was 12 when I saw that shit?
right. And
It's hard.
a lot of people, like it's just like you said, like a lot of people are not gonna be able to get why this movie is so special because of its age. And Tony, I wanted to bring this up as well. He brings up the Disney Goosebumps, and I can't agree with him more because there's one specific thing I've always talked about Goosebumps and what I love about Goosebumps. And looking at this trailer, this series is gonna be dead on arrival.
Oh,
Because like it's kind of, instead of doing the anthology route, they're making like this anthology, but just an interconnected story where, similar to the movies that came out X amount of years, where they took the premise of Goosebumps, where R.L. Stein's an actual character, and these books actually come to life, like on some Jumanji shit. Cool premise, but shit was not scary. It was terrible.
yeah.
Here Disney now gets a crack at it, and it does look well produced, but there's things that are just really goofy about this trailer. One is the song choice with Travis Scott, the Goosebumps song. That's just like really weird to put in your horror trailer. That it starts off serious and it transitions into something that looks like it's just going to be super fucking goofy. And they're taking specific books and then they're going to combine a certain certain story. So something happens to this kid in this house, and all these different items, I guess, are kind of going to be cursed or haunted or something like that. And they had this mask there. I was like, I'll be so disappointed if it comes out that this is the haunted mask. And when it gets revealed later that people are talking about what books are going to be involved, the haunted mask is on that list, and I was like, no way that this white looking porcelain mask is the haunted mask. Because if you look at the haunted mask from the Goosebumps cover, or even the actual series, you should just be automatically disappointed unless they do something crazy unique. I'm still optimistic about the series. It's just that whole look of the Haunted Mask and certain tones of the trailer just seems really goofy to me. And it's sad that something like when Nickelodeon brings back something like Are You Afraid of the Dark, they're able to actually capture something terrifying that they didn't really catch in the original series. Even though it does have its moments in the original series, they still, I think, respected what it means to be a Are You Afraid of the Dark. Like I guess they understand just the the story of what makes it special. And this just looks like Disney trying to get a cash grab real quick. You got Justin Long in there, but
Yeah.
and he's very heavily involved. And like I said, I hope that I'm completely wrong about this series and it turns out to be a fucking hit. But I don't trust Disney, and Disney Plus hasn't shown
Listen,
any type of effort. Just looking at that Haunted Mask, I was like, there's just no effort into that. And I wish I should have got a side by side, but you even if you saw it, you'd be like, what the fuck? You went from something that looks so terrifying to just so basic with just no personality, or doesn't seem like they put any effort into it. So I just hope I'm wrong about it, but that trailer just didn't win
fucking
me over.
up.
Yeah.
Disney fucking up, man. Like they're having a bad year this year, bro. Like it seems like, remember at one point where everything Disney touched turned to gold. Now
Yeah.
it's like everything they touch just goes to mediocrity. You know what I'm saying? Like they're in desperate need of a hit, because right now they're not even. It's not happening, man. From Star Wars to Marvel to, like you said now, Goosebumps, man. Like they're not really connecting with audiences these days. I don't know what the problem is.
Yeah, and like they'll have some things like sprinkled here and there, like Werewolf by Night is like the best Marvel shit that they put out of that Phase 4, and now they have to come out with a colored version, which is going to be interesting. I'm definitely going to check that out.
Yeah.
Of that, because the first one was black and white. They have select, like, not a lot of shows at all, but they have like a couple that are like, oh, if you would have just put a little bit more support behind this could be something. But yeah, that's just like my short takes on the Goosebumps shit, because I love Goosebumps, and like I've been saying, like I want to like do my own thing for the Haunted Mask, because I have such an interesting idea where I would want to take that, because I would want it to feel familiar but also be its own thing, and take these Goosebumps stories and really like turn them on their heads and make it very much more personal and dark and scary. You know what I'm saying? Because these are supposed to be kids stories, and people don't like to see bad things happen to kids. But in this version, obviously, like, I'm gonna go there with certain things. I would want to go there. Yeah.
Speaking of which, bro, I just I got 30 minutes left. For them, I was watching the last voyage of Dimitri. How do you say that shit?
Demeter. Yeah.
Yeah, Demeter. Yeah, I got 30 minutes left, and yeah, like you said, usually kids get spared in most movies, most times, man. And yeah, a kid. Did you see the movie?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was there day one.
Yeah, when the kid died, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, that's kind of dark.
Yeah.
Not only did he die, but then he got burnt up by the sun and shit. I was like,
yeah, that
took some balls to do that.
Yeah, that movie gets a lot of hate too, as well, because I feel like they're trying to capture like those old feelings from those old monster movies and stuff like that.
Right.
I loved how Dracula was like Batman the whole time, ironically, in that movie.
Yeah. Well, I went into it with low expectations, because I know Q shit on it. Q was like, this shit was boring. And honestly, I think if I would have saw this in the theater, I probably would have fell asleep on it. But I had the luxury of watching it at home with my laptop and my earbuds in. It's not bad. It's not great. I won't even go as far as to say it's really good, but it's not bad. There's some elements in it that I do enjoy. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a couple of times I got caught off guard a little bit.
See, if they were going to kick off a monster universe, that would be a good start, honestly, because it's like you would never expect it. And I think also the marketing, they didn't have any really huge marketing for that movie too, so that's
Right.
another reason why it did poorly at the box office.
Hey Ted,
You know what
Terrence,
I'm saying?
that movie was mediocre and a waste of potential. Easily one of the worst vampire movies ever made. Nosferatu. Yeah, nah, yeah, it definitely can't mess with Nosferatu. But yeah, it wasn't. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't put it up there with some of the best vampire joints. Nah, not at all, not at all. But not as bad as like you said, like it's getting hateful. I didn't hate it. But then again, I still got 30 minutes left. I didn't finish it yet.
Yeah, they just dropped this vampire movie on Netflix just recently. It's called like, well, it's translation. It's like El Condo, like El Canto or some shit like that. But it's like pronounced or translated as the Count,
Okay.
and it's like about this vampire that's just been living his life. It's a satire. He's just been kind of living his life, like enjoying. Like you'll just see them flash through his life as a young vampire, just obsessed with violence and putting himself into different positions of power over the years. And he gets to the point where he's tired of just
Right.
living. He wants to die, but he's left all this money and stuff to his family, and it almost kind of turns into like Succession in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this like nurse that's kind of interviewing him and stuff like it's really brutal too, very fucking brutal. Like,
Oh
and
wow.
it's in black and white, and it's like a German film, but they got it dubbed. Not a German film, but a Spanish film. Um, I would recommend checking that out. That
Yeah,
was
no, yeah,
fucking.
yeah, man. Make sure you message me the name of this. I know I'm gonna forget because I want to check that out. So I'm always in the market for a good vampire joint. Purpose, my boy, be breaking my heart sometimes. Hey
Yeah, I gotta do it
man,
sometimes.
look, hey, listen, it's all subjective, man. And what's great to me may not be great to you. I mean, my personal opinion, I think Lost Boys is the greatest vampire movie ever. Some people say Fright Night. You know what I mean? It's just it just depends on your taste.
I
I mean,
you mentioned Nosferatu. I would say Nosferatu is definitely up there, and I'm
oh
curious
yeah.
to see. I really hope, however, this new Robert Egger Nosferatu like is shot, it should be a
Mm-hmm.
black and white. I'd be so down for that. I think that'd
Right.
be really cool because you don't got that many black and white movies, and that's another thing that's
Mm-hmm.
either going to be something most people aren't going to be fucking with. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like you got
Yeah.
the Lighthouse, which I thought that was really dope and bold of them to go black and white with that. Um, but yeah, there's so much to just really look at and kind of dissect as a genre as a whole, which you'll definitely find your bump. Like you just got to kind of find what kind of genre or subgenre you really like, because maybe that's why it's harder for people to kind of get into it as well. They don't know really where to start. Everything kind of mixes in with one another, and I'm
Right.
kind of like, you know, because some people don't even know that. But even that, like, you don't even know. Some people wouldn't be aware that this is considered horror, like something like Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
Anything with like a creature in it is considered
Right.
horror. Even like elements of Godzilla, just the kaiju and stuff like that. Like that
Yeah.
all kind of stems from horror, and that's what's so fascinating about people saying like, "Oh, I'm not a horror fan," but you like Godzilla though. You like Jaws,
You
and
like Jaws, yeah, and I guess Jaws. People forget Jaws is a horror film because it was directed by the same guy that made E.T. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
which is
people
wild.
forget. Yeah, people forget Spielberg. If Spielberg wanted to, he could have fucked the horror genre up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, in a good way. You know what I mean? Because I think he's his knowledge of horror, like the way he shoots, the way he shot Jaws, like the jump scares that he implemented. You know what I'm saying, was like perfect. I think if he would have stuck with the horror genre, I mean, he probably could have made it more, I guess you could say respectable, where people would say would respect it because wow, Steven Spielberg, the new horror movie by him. But the fact that the biggest name in horror at the time was like, well, I know Hitchcock was the biggest name at one time, and then Wes Craven, then John Carpenter. But if you'd have had like a Steven Spielberg, forget about it. You know what I'm saying? It probably would have been more respected then. Godzilla. The first one was the original Godzilla, or like however you pronounce that shit. That original black and white one was
Yeah,
considered a horror movie.
anything with like a big ass monster or creature is that's horror. Like
Yeah.
it could be sci-fi and action still, but like it's still the
Mm-hmm.
elements of fear. Like you look at any horror documentary that talks about the history of it, they'll tell you that
Right.
that whole Godzilla thing came out because of the World War II and stuff like because Japan
Right.
got nuked on and stuff like that. They constantly put that in a lot of their content outside of Godzilla, but
Yeah.
that fear, and which is so crazy. It's really fucked up that like you know how some of those stories come about are just people don't realize the the things that inspire that. That's what inspired Godzilla is the fact that they got bombed and shit. It's just this nuclear
Yeah.
war and
And
go ahead.
what I was gonna say, like, and even taking it back to Jaws, like, yo, Jaws was so large. Remember, a lot of ripoffs came after that. You know, what I mean, you had Piranha, Orca, Alligator, Humanoids of the Deep. Which, if you haven't seen that, please watch that movie. that is one of the craziest fucking movies I've ever seen. Yeah, it just spawned like a whole bunch of ripoffs, man. And then those are all, I mean, besides Piranha, all solid horror films. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Well, maybe not so much Orca. Orca was more of a revenge tale. You know what I'm saying? Because Orca, I mean, it had elements of horror, but I wouldn't consider that a horror film. But you know what I'm saying, though. It spawned like like it had its own like subgenre. That's how big Jaws was. You know what I mean?
And you got Tremors. Tremors was another
Tremors,
that was
yeah,
like that was pretty much like Dune meets Jaws.
right, right. And so with all that being said, now that I think about it, I mean, even though I think horror isn't a good place right now, but I feel like they need to ease back on all the exorcism and possession movies. Because this year alone, we have the Exorcist Believer getting ready to drop. We had the Nun just dropped, and then the one with Russell Crowe. So it's
Talk to
like,
me.
yeah,
It's a
talk to
lot.
me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so all these possession movies, but you go back then, like, yeah, you got your Hellraisers, your Elm Streets, Jaws, and you have
Yeah, you
all
had
these different types of horror films. Like, just take your pick. But now it seems like everything is just so like similar. You know what I mean?
yeah, most definitely. Because like you look at last year, it was a lot different. There wasn't a lot of the same kind of horror movies being made like you see now, where it's just like this is the year of where possession movies are trying to make a comeback and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
It's
it's
just like,
interesting how like those waves will come back to like in some type of way. Like you'll have found footage movies start to kind of seep their
mm-hmm,
way back, where you'll have the possession now, or the
right,
slashers, and or then like everything that comes out. There's always going to be some new stuff that's refreshing take on something that's familiar or something completely brand new. Or um, you have two movies that came out this year that were very like that experimental horror, which is like Skinamarink and Outer Waters, which Skinamarink is definitely not going to be for everybody. Like
I keep
some
hearing
people will really,
that.
yeah, so some people will really appreciate it, but because imagine just watching a movie and all you're hearing is like kind of the dialogue and just weird eerie music playing on and like the camera's just usually focused on like one thing the whole
Mm,
time, and then like it'll switch every so often, so it's that process is very frustrating. That's why I was just like I don't understand it, but like I still get it because when I watched the trailer for Skinamarink, I was like, oh shit, this feels completely different. Like just the tone
right.
of it, it just feels something. Outer Waters kind of does the same thing, but there's a little bit more of a story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those horror movies where it's all about the atmosphere, and I know
Yeah.
it's really hard to kind of like break that down. You have to kind of watch it for yourself. Tubi's got Outer Waters. You could check that out. You could see what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But if you ever get around to watching Skinamarink, I think it's on Shutter. Yeah,
Mm,
you could try to like I don't get it, but it's one of those very cheap movies. I think it only cost like $1 million to make it, some shit like that, and it made so much fucking money. And a lot of people really enjoyed it. Some people really didn't like it. It wasn't their cup of tea, but that's what I mean. Where sometimes you just gotta take risks, and you never know.
Yeah, see, it's on Hulu. Yeah, Hulu. I don't see Shutter, but I just looked up where I could watch it. Yeah, Hulu was the first thing that popped up.
Okay.
Oh yeah, okay. I think it is on Shutter. Okay, yeah, it is. It's on Shutter also. I mean, so far this year, like, so what do you think has been the most original horror movie this year that you've seen so far?
It has to be either Talk to Me or Cobweb between those
Okay.
two. As far as the big stuff that gets released, streaming wise, uh, trying to think of like off the top of my head. There has been a couple movies, like there's small movies that kind of go over under people's radars.
Mm-hmm.
I think like there's something wrong with the children that was really kind of interesting and
Oh, I
fun.
never got around to watching that. That was on my queue, and I just never got around to watching that one.
Yeah, Malum, that was like a remake of The Last Shift or something like that, which is
Okay.
really interesting. That's another like kind of it's like a haunted jail type of shit, whatever. But that was a really cool, dope movie. Don't Look Away. I've mentioned this plenty of times too. Is just the concept of a cursed or evil mannequin that just makes people kill themselves if you look away from it or something like that. It's
Oh
very
wow.
interesting, but then very disappointing. Just a very disappointing movie. Interesting premise, but disappointing movie. So it happens, it happens, and sometimes I think what the moral of the story is, it's just like I just think this genre deserves a lot more respect
Yeah.
than it's some people might not see it that way, but just all the different characters that come out of horror, all the like from the set designs to the scripts to the however whatever you want to break a movie down, TV show, like horror has done some very interesting things, and people should be acknowledged for their work, they put in.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, yeah, but I think it's gonna take that. I don't know if it's gonna say it's gonna take that one, but it's gonna take something to really catapult horror to that place where okay, that this is a force to be reckoned with. Like now it's I mean, it's still like a cult thing, but I think it's a lot more bigger now than it was back in the day. Because, like I said, back in the day, it was like right above porn. You know what I mean? But now
It's
it's a little bit more
a lot of
respected, but not quite there yet. And
yeah, there's a lot more
it's gonna
competition.
take something. Yeah, it's gonna take something to put it over because right now, I mean, I almost feel like horror's like WWE right now. You know what I'm saying? WWE is not you know like like you look at the Attitude Era, then even the Hogan era. Like I'm saying, it was so much more original back then, and now even though it's large, it's it's all over the place, but it just feels like it's not this. It doesn't have the same pop as it used to have back then because it seemed like back then it was more originality, and I think now that's kind of the problem with horror is that there needs to be more than just possession movies, more than just
Yeah, for
the
sure.
devil took over me movie. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
Terrifier 2 was such a breath of fresh air, even though it was a slasher. But it's like to me, it felt like it was a return to form, return to its roots. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like horror needs to get back to the roots, what made it great to begin with, and build off of that.
yeah, and have fun, and like that's the main thing is just have fun behind it,
Yeah.
because Terrifier 2 might not be for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
but it's such an entertaining movie. Like you cannot walk away so
Oh, it was a hell of
you're
a
not
ride. Yeah. Mhm.
entertained, or what I'm saying. It felt like an event, like going to the theaters to watch that. And it'd be a packed theater too. So
Yeah.
speaking of like the marketing and stuff, I don't know if you saw the Saw thing that's going around, that
Nah.
they did a parody of the Nicole Kidman shit. They had Billy playing like Nicole Kidman, like and kind of saying what she would say, but from Billy's perspective and shit. But the AMC didn't like that, so they made them kind of take it that. Which is
Hey,
like, that's a brilliant. I was like, yo, you got my ticket just off of that. I was like, that's brilliant.
AMC need to get their shit together, man. I don't know about you, Perk, but I'm noticing that horror movies and black movies, AMC is showing no love to. Every time I
depends.
go on the app and I try to click on whether it's a horror movie or a black movie, we are not. There's no showtimes for this movie at this time.
That's interesting because it's like in my area they show a lot of those movies. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
I just have to go to the theaters I don't want to go to go watch those. But they're definitely there.
Yeah.
Because I remember you mentioned Dumb Money because it's weird because Dumb Money has like this first week it's open like select theaters and then like the 20 something that's when it's gonna be like a worldwide kind of release.
Okay.
It's weird.
So I thought this week was supposed to be okay, so it's not till next week. Yes, I was about to say like,
so
damn.
you should have like and then there's so many movies that come out and now that I can kind of like I've been just really paying attention to it and understand why certain movies don't get played in theaters where it's kind of open now to where you wouldn't be able to put like an outlaw Johnny Black out while like Barbie was going or Oppenheimer like, in the midst of it because they took up most of the screenings and stuff like that. So
yeah,
sometimes you gotta have to kind of wait and they'll probably put it up in on the site later or something or a later date or just wait till streaming. So there's a bunch of movies that was just like damn, I'm gonna have to kind of wait, and I'm kind of glad because they'd be like, yeah, they'd be on streaming like 3 weeks later. Just like, okay, cool.
Well, that's what happened with Cobweb because I was trying to go see Cobweb at the theater, and once again, there are no showtimes for this movie at this time. I'm like, you know what, y'all can like even Outlaw Johnny Black. I had to drive 12 miles to a moldy Regal Cinema to watch that movie.
Yeah, it's just terrible. I haven't had one good Regal experience.
Oh, it was bad. Like, dog, like last time I've been to that theater was like, I think I saw Tupac Resurrection there like long time ago, and it's exactly the same. They haven't done no renovations or nothing. Bro, the seats were falling apart. I was the only one in there. It was kind of creepy because I was the only person in there. So I was like kind of looking around, kind of paranoid. I watch a lot of horror movies, so I'm like, damn, I hope nothing else is in here. Because it was a big fucking stadium type theater, but I was the only person there. And yeah, it was just it was bad, boy. The seats were uncomfortable because I'm so used to the recliner seats, and those like the old school seats that don't go back.
Yeah, a lot of those theaters have that still too. It's just like, man, it's just so uncomfortable, especially with like a long ass movie.
Right.
And if you're in there with a lot of people, it's just, oh man, it's terrible. It's a terrible experience.
Yeah, it's rough, man. So I'm hoping. And there was another movie that came out this week called Satanic Hispanics or something like that. It's
I
like
saw the trailer.
that was not showing that one either. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, sometimes it's just like those are select theaters and stuff like that. They'll just, there's been so many times this year, be like, oh yeah, this is gonna be an early screening for this, but it's like, oh, you got to drive into the city for this. I was like, no,
right.
I'll just wait. But they like it's just certain things they have gotten better with. I think it just depends on the area.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of like theaters and stuff like that, I feel like Cinemark is probably the cleanest next to like AMC. Like every like Cinemark I've been to, it's like they keep this place fairly clean in this bitch. Like,
right. Yeah, man. I was like, because I put on Facebook and everything. I was so disappointed because I don't know, because it's like when I have my heart set on watching something and then I go buy a ticket, it's like, okay, this movie's not available. I'm like, man, kick rocks.
yeah.
But we show Barbie 20 times a day. Nobody want to see no damn Barbie, man. That shit's played out last month.
yeah. Put some new shit in there, but next month is loaded with a lot of different horror movies, like especially on the 6th, like how it was last year, where that first week was just loaded with horror movies and stuff like that. It's going to continue. You got a bunch of series to look forward to. I don't know if you know about the VHS movies. They just put out the poster for VHS 85, so that's going to be interesting. That's really hit or miss. That's a hit or miss series for me, but I like it.
Dog, what was the one that came out last year, bro? I took it. Was it last year, the year before that? Was it VHS 84, right?
Yeah, I think it was 84.
Man, that was the biggest pile of Triceratops shit I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it seemed like they try to go with like more humor this time around and stuff like that, and it didn't really work. There were some cool ideas like the Legend of the Hidden Temple kind of episode that was story that was pretty dope with the game show.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah, that was out there.
Yeah, but that's what I like about anthologies like that. You can kind of just play around with different things, and it didn't really resonate with a lot of people. It wasn't one of my favorite VHSs. I think the one that came out before that I liked more.
Yeah, I heard.
Um,
Yeah,
but other than that,
that made like my top 10 worst of the year. that one,
yeah,
I was like, wow. I didn't even finish it.
Then we got that Pet Cemetery prequel coming out next month
I just saw the trailer for that. Yeah,
Paramount's dropping or something like that.
So,
I don't know how I feel about that because it's just like, yeah, now y'all just want to kind of market it. I'm gonna watch it regardless. But
so it's a prequel to the 2019 Pet Cemetery.
I think so. I'm not sure because I was trying to watch the trailer. Yeah, I wasn't trying to watch the trailer. I was like, I'm just gonna go into that blind and see how it works. That Goosebumps comes out on the 13th, and somebody comes out with a jump on Peacock. I forget. Why am I drawing a blank on his name? It's a big name, but he's doing like this. It kind of looks like a docu series, but it's a horror movie. It looks really fascinating. This comes out like on the 13th of next month. Okay. So there's gonna be a ton of horror movies stuff to watch. Chucky comes back. I'm interested to see what he's gonna do in this third season. A lot to look forward to. It's gonna be dope. Perptober is gonna be lit.
Hell yeah.
But I think this is a good time to kind of start wrapping things up. Don't have really much else to say. You got anything coming down the pipeline?
Well, of course I dropped my review for Outlaw Johnny Black yesterday. And also I had a live stream the other night where I did a versus between Set It Off and Dead President. So that's kind of something new I'm doing on the channel where I have verses of certain movies. So I'm starting out with a lot of hood joints. So I did Menace versus Boys in the Hood, then Set It Off versus Dead Presidents. So I think next I'm gonna do King New York versus New Jack City. That should be an interesting one because those are two more that's been always been compared. And if AMC gets it, I want to watch what's that movie called? It Lives Inside.
Yeah, I want to see that this week too.
I want to see that.
But it's weird. It's weird because it's like it only has like one showing. Because you would think it would be a bigger, like it would have more screens like open at that Thursday night. It only has like one showing. I was like, that's really odd. So
the disrespect is real, man.
But it's like they had so much like that was played through so many different movies. I was like, okay, they expect this to be kind of like the hit because this is the same people that made like Get Out and stuff like that, the producers and stuff like that. So who knows? I'm gonna definitely see that. And Expendables comes out, so won't be able to do a double feature, but I'll be able to watch both of those.
Oh, Expendables drops this week too?
Yeah.
Shit, I can't diss my boy Sly, man. That's my second pop. So yeah, looks like I'm gonna have to go Friday and Saturday. Then I'm gonna catch. I'm gonna watch It Lives Inside first, and then I'm gonna catch Expendables probably Saturday. Only reason I'm not putting Expendables priority just because that third one was shit and 2 was cool. The first one was probably the best one.
Yeah, I don't remember nothing about the story. I was just like, this is actually a better version of what Fast and Furious is probably trying to do. But
yeah. But other than that, yeah, that's all I got coming up for right now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
As far as me, like I just dropped the review for Elevator Game. Very mixed movie, very mixed bag. A lot of missed potential, but I was glad that I got to watch it regardless. I'm working on my Heels season 2 review. I'm probably gonna put that out tomorrow or sometime during the week or something like that. Just been really busy, but I really enjoyed that finale. And just been liking all the wrestling content that's been kind of coming out. So, got that. Got the It Lives Inside review coming. Bunch of stuff coming. So just stay tuned. I appreciate everybody checking out the replay. Make sure you like, subscribe if you're new, and share this out to all your fellow horror fans out there and friends. Till next time, see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Peace.